All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hope all of you guys are having a great week. Got a quick show for you guys today. We're going to be touching on 4 games from last night's slate. We're going to be going deep on Chicago, Denver, and then I want to talk about Paul George's debut at the Philadelphia 76ers, and then we'll be briefly touching on wins by the Toronto Raptors and Miami Heat from last night. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss show announcements. Don't forget about our podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. It's also super helpful if you leave a rating and a review on that front. Jackson's doing incredible work on our social media feeds on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Make sure you guys follow us there for more content throughout the season. And last but not least, if you guys want to get questions into our Friday mailbags, drop them in our full episodes on YouTube in the comments. Right, mailbag with a colon, drop your question. That helps me find them when I'm sorting through the comments, and we'll get to them on Fridays throughout the remainder of the year. Also, it's looking like LeBron's probably going to play tonight. So our first playback stream of the week will probably be tonight for Lakers Jazz. If he's a late scratch, then we'll just push it to the Sunday night game when LeBron will inevitably debut then. But I'm expecting LeBron to play tonight. We'll be live on playback for that game. And then our second playback stream this week is going to be for Nuggets Rockets on Friday night. Those are watch alongs. We're going through the entire game. We take questions, we take callers, we hang out, we watch hoops. It's a lot of fun. You guys should come check it out. All right, let's talk some basketball. So Chicago snaps a 5-game losing streak on the road in Denver last night, essentially riding 2 big runs, one with Jokic off the floor and one with Jokic on the floor, and then some timely shot making in the clutch and one big defensive play. And I really want to zoom in on the matchup problem that is Nikola Vucevic when we get into crunch time. But the first run was a run with Nikola Jokic off the floor, and it started on defense. Ayo Dosunmu did a good job on Jamal Murray, forced him into a couple of misses. And then all of Chicago's bigs did an amazing job in this game on Jonas and on Jokic. Jokic had 13 misses in this game, which was by far the most he's had since the season opener against Golden State. And, you know, it's a combination of him missing that pick and pop 3-point shot, but also forcing some misses around the basket. And I want to shout out Patrick Williams, Jalen Smith, Vucevic himself. All those guys did a great job battling Denver's bigs. But during that first bench run, Patrick Williams and Jalen Smith got a couple of really nice one-on-one stops against Jonas Valanciunas. Patrick had one against Jonas where he forced him into a really bad miss where he hit the backboard first on a hook shot that was right in front of the rim. And basically, if you watch him, he uses his left arm and he gets down into the pocket and starts disrupting the basketball, which we talk about this all the time. But if you just try to contest a guy up top, these dudes are pros. These dudes practice making shots when they're contested. That's not going to bother them. You got to find a way to disrupt their rhythm in one way or another. We've talked about this concept with the difference between a Jonathan Kuminga versus Moses Moody when we talk about Golden State's perimeter defenders. Kuminga's often there, but not being disruptive, whereas Moses Moody's constantly reaching and being physical and can disrupt rhythm. Patrick Williams on this play gets into the pocket, disrupts Jonas Valanciunas so that when he goes up for his hook, he's way out of rhythm, and he ends up smoking it badly off the back, way high up off the backboard, right? Jalen Smith gets a big stop on Jonas where he tries to take away the middle. Jonas wants to get towards the middle on either side of the block. He's on the left block. He wants to get to the middle for his left shoulder hook. If he's on the right block, he wants to get to the middle for that short little turnaround over his right shoulder, more of kind of like a turnaround jump shot. But he likes to get middle. Jalen took that away, stood middle. Jonas tried to bully through him anyway, and he picked up a big offensive foul. So they got the stops on Murray. They got the stops on Jonas. And then going down the other end, a nice combination of some dribble penetration from Ayo Dosunmu and Dalen Terry, some transition pushes from them that got easy layups, and hot three-point shooting. Jalen Smith continues to shoot the ball well. He hit a couple of threes. Javon Carter hit a couple of threes during that run. Ayo Dosunmu hit one, and the Bulls found themselves up by 18 in the middle of the second quarter. Now, Jokic comes in. He immediately helps reassert control. The Nuggets come all the way back. We'll talk about the Nuggets bench later because that's becoming kind of a weird up and down subplot for them this season. The second run, though, was with Jokic on the floor in the late third quarter. And this was the classic transition pushes that Chicago's been killing teams with all season. A ton of damage in transition during that third quarter run. Josh Giddey got a layup. Ayo Dosunmu got a layup. Jalen Smith got an and one. Javon Carter hit another three on one of those broken transition sequences off of an offensive rebound. They also did some nice work against Denver's zone defense. They kept getting the ball to the middle. And one of the things that happens in a zone is once you get the ball to the middle, it inverts everybody's eyes. So now all of a sudden, if you're up top, you're looking down towards the middle, so the guys behind you are hard to see. And if you're at the basket, you're looking towards the middle, which can cause you to lose sight of the baseline. And Ayo Dosunmu ended up getting 2 really nice buckets off of cuts because the ball got to the middle. Vucevic caught the ball in the middle. Dosunmu cut along the baseline, got himself like a little floater there right along the left block. Another one, Patrick Williams dribbles into the middle of the lane, gets the ball into the middle of the zone. Tim Hardaway Jr. turns, puts his back towards Patrick Williams. That allows Dosunmu to cut right behind him. He gets another layup against the zone. So they end up getting another double-digit lead in that third quarter run, this time with Nikola Jokic on the floor. But to Denver bench's credit, the Denver bench did have a nice response compared to their first shift in the early fourth quarter. They made an adjustment. They, instead of going with Valanciunas with Jokic out, they went with Aaron Gordon at center. They actually managed to cut the lead down to 6 on a Jamal Murray and one before Nikola Jokic came back. And then we got ourselves a classic clutch battle. And while Denver continued to score like they always do in the clutch, Chicago went bucket for bucket with them. Some really high quality offense. A steady diet, once again, like we've talked about all season, of that Vucevic Giddey 2-man game or any sort of ball screen involving Nikola Vucevic. And that was causing problems for Denver. Giddey got downhill on one, got into Cam Johnson's chest and spun over his left shoulder and made a little hook shot. So Denver didn't want to give up that level of downhill rim pressure. They didn't want to give up that runway. So they started bringing Jokic up to the level for the specific purpose of stopping the basketball. That ended up leading to a bunch of other problems. They had one sequence where it led to a series of switches where Jokic got switched off and Gordon got switched on to Vucevic. They ran a quick interchange on the weak side, and so now Vucevic had Cam Johnson on him. Vucevic starts backing down Cam Johnson. Jokic, who had been switched on to Kevin Huerter at that point, ends up throwing a double team from the top side. Vucevic kicks it out to Huerter, and he hits a 3. So you come up to the level to try to stop the dribble penetration, but that ends up leading to a peel switch and a series of switches that gives you a mismatch with Vucevic in the post, which leads to an open 3 when Jokic rotates off of a shooter. And then the play that iced the game, that Vucevic pick and pop at the top of the key, that is the exact same type of sequence that is always going to be open in a pick and roll coverage where you don't switch. Jokic came up to the level, they pitch it back to Vucevic, wide open, popping out of the screen, and he's just there at the top of the key, and it's basically make or miss at that point, and he knocked it down. And so that ball screen ended up causing all sorts of problems for Denver down the stretch with the combination of Josh Giddey's ability to get downhill off of those ball screens, what that forced Denver to do and trying to contain him at the level, which then led to all of the shortcomings in the switches and in the pick and pop that Vucevic was able to do damage in. And by the way, like, he ends up making the biggest defensive play of the game during that stretch. He ends up, they're up by 1. They go down to the other end. Murray Jokic 2-man game. Vucevic himself comes up to the level and gets a very nice deflection on a pass towards Jokic in the pocket. That deflection ends up leading to a Dosunmu dunk going out the other way. So really, really nice basketball from the Bulls down the stretch, fueled by that matchup problem that is Nikola Vucevic. Now, Vooch is a matchup problem because he's great at coverage beaters, right? So like when you have these different options on how to guard ball screens, whether it's a deep drop or if it's a higher drop or it's a blitz or it's a switch, whatever it is that you're doing to defend ball screens, there's a way to beat every version of it, right? For a deep drop coverage, the deep drop is designed to take away the roll and the rim, right? So that opens up mid-range shot making, right? Or even sometimes 3-point shot making if you can wipe the dude out on a screen, right? But then at the level coverages, they open up the roll, right? Or the skip if you tag the roller, right? Blitzes, they open up the 4-on-3 sequences where teams can pick you apart in quick little, tic-tac-toe sequences for layups and wide open threes. And then switches, they open up mismatch attacking, right? A guard against a big or a big against a guard. Those are the coverage beaters for the coverage that you're trying to run, right? And Vucevic is just a textbook example of a coverage beater. The pick and pop 3 is a perfect example. If you come up to the level or run any variation of drop coverage that doesn't involve you switching, you're going to leave the pick and pop open. Or at the very least, if you rotate to it from the weak side, someone's open on the skip. Like, you are guaranteed to leave a 3-point shooter wide open if you have a pick and pop big and you're not switching ball screens. That is a coverage beater that Nikola Vucevic is bringing to the table. That post-up weapon. Okay, you switch, all of a sudden you run a series of switches and now Cam Johnson's on Nikola Vucevic. Yeah, you can leave him on an island there, but Vuce is probably going to do some damage one-on-one against a guy like Cam Johnson. Okay, you double team off of a shooter. There's an easy little kick out pass and a guy's knocking down the shot, right? And so when you have that type of weapon in a two-man game, especially when you've got someone who can do some damage on the other side of it, I mean, Denver fans know this personally, rooting for Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, but Vucevic just did a lot of damage last night. And then last shout out here, again, I said this off the top, but all game long, Chicago's bigs and forwards battled Jokic really well. And I thought they had an underrated defensive performance in this game, forcing the misses that they forced. And they just made life difficult. Really nice win. Nice little bounce back for the Bulls to get back over 500. Before we move on to the next game, I wanted to talk briefly about Denver's bench. We talked yesterday about how Denver's bench has been super weird this year. Like statistically, they're better than previous seasons. They're about 6.5 points negative net per 100 possessions when Jokic is off the floor. That's about half of what it's been in most of the previous seasons. So that's good, but it's still feast or famine. And it's still statistically bad in a large sample. Like I was hoping they'd be slightly positive with Jokic off the floor this year. That has not happened. But it's manifesting very much in this feast or famine way, right? Like I talked about this before this last weekend. I talked about how it was like you'd have these games where they would win a game because of their bench, like the Sacramento game, right? But then they'd have these other games where they'd lose a game because of their bench. They'd lose control in those minutes. And then we just got a perfect example of that in their last two games. They're +8 and really help you win a game, a tough road game against Minnesota, but then they're a disaster and they have a -15 shift spanning the first and second quarter last night that digs you into a 16-point hole before Jokic comes in. But then suddenly they come back and have a good shift in the fourth quarter that helps shrink the lead back to 6 before Jokic comes back. It's very up and down. And it's one of those things where like there's two different kinds of variance with that group that I think are worth addressing here. Variance that's kind of out of their control and variance that's in their control. Like, for instance, I do expect some offensive variance with this group no matter what. Jamal Murray's a tough shot maker. Sometimes he's going to miss shots, like that little drop coverage floater he missed in the first bench unit in the first half. That's a shot that is a tough shot. He can make it, but it's a tough shot. He missed another little mid-range pull-up during that stretch. It's a tough shot. He can make it, but like he's going to miss it sometimes, right? The Jonas Valanciunas post-ups. Like, we've seen Jonas win that battle at various points this season. He got a couple of chances with that first bench group, and Jalen Smith and Patrick Williams won their battles. Like, credit to them. That's going to happen sometimes. You're playing with offensive players in those groups that are going to be hot and cold sometimes. To me, the controllables, though, the variance that they can control is on the defensive end of the floor. Statistically, they've been okay on defense when Jokic is off the floor. That's been how they've won a lot of their shifts with that group during the season. But they've had other stretches where they've been really bad on defense with Jokic off the floor. And I thought last night was an example of that. And there were just a lot of different silly mistakes. I thought Jamal Murray and Tim Hardaway Jr. in particular were very bad on defense in this game. Jamal, there were like 4 or 5 different possessions where he was like sagging, not even in a defensive stance where he's helping and rotating, but just sagging off the ball on a shooter. And it's like swing, swing. There's Javon Carter hitting a 3 when like they didn't even break down your defense. Or there's Aya Dosunmu hitting a catch and shoot 3 on the left wing when they didn't even break down your defense. Or swing the ball to Jamal's man and he just rips the closeout and Jamal's just asleep, and now he's giving up dribble penetration, easy drop off for a dunk for Dalen Terry. Like there's a lot of like just silly, fixable, like laziness mistakes happening defensively with those bench groups in some of these nights where it's like that is under your control. I like Jamal getting to his spot and rising up, it's going to go in or it's not. You post up Jonas and he gets single coverage, he's either going to score or he's not. There's a certain amount of variance there that's out of your control, but there's these fixable problems on the defensive end of the floor that they can absolutely rectify. Tim Hardaway Jr. was just kind of like Space Casey last night on defense. And like there's just a certain amount of additional attention to detail that can go a long way towards helping them avoid some of the catastrophe bench nights like they had last night. Like at the end of the game, anything can happen, right? It's a close game. Like you synthesize any basketball game down to like a half dozen possessions, and now anything can happen, right? Like if Jamal Murray gets the ball to Jokic in the pocket instead of throwing it into Nikola Vucevic's hand, leading to the Dosunmu dunk, if he completes that pass, Denver probably scores there. They have a really good chance to win. Like if Jokic doesn't double off of Herter one pass away on the Vucevic post up, and instead you double from the weak side off of a lesser offensive player, maybe you get a stop there. Maybe you end up winning the game. That's close games. They can go either way. There's, tough shot making. Like Jokic hits a tough right shoulder fade in there. Like Giddey hits a tough little left shoulder hook in there. Like there's a certain amount of anything can happen in a close game that's got a half dozen possessions. What you can't afford to do is spot a team like the Bulls, a 18-point second quarter lead, because you have these like brutally bad stretches of your bench where like in a couple of minutes you completely lose control of a game. And I do think some of that is fixable by just becoming a little bit more attentive on the defensive end of the floor. Today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. It's our favorite time of year. Between the NBA and college, there's basketball on every night. And every night is a shot to score a major bucket on Hard Rock Bet, your home for hoops action all season long. Sign up today and you could score $150 in bonus bets. Just place a $5 bet, and if it hits, you get not only your winnings, but $150 in extra bonus bets. Want to see what everyone else is betting on tonight? Top picks or parlays across any sport? The Hard Rock Bet app literally shows you. It's another reason to download the app just for the info. Tap Discover, and you can see trending picks and parlays at any time. The Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook app is the only legal sportsbook for whenever you're in Florida, and it's also live in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, and Colorado. Coming soon to more states as well. Plus, Hard Rock Bet offers new promos every single day, so whenever you're listening, just open the app and check out what they've got any day of the week. Download the Hard Rock Bet app and make your first deposit. Payable and bonus bets, not a cash offer. Offered by the Seminole Tribe of Florida in Florida. Offered by Seminole Hard Rock Digital, LLC in all other states. Must be 21 plus and physically present in Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Illinois, Indiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Tennessee, or Virginia to play. Terms and conditions apply. Concerned about gambling in Florida? Call 1-833-PLAY-WISE. In Indiana, if you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, New Jersey, Ohio, Tennessee, or Virginia. Moving on to Paul George's debut. The Sixers got a really nice come-from-behind win against the Clippers last night. Just an unbelievable performance from Quentin Grimes in the second half of that game. James Harden came out the gates and just absolutely fried the 76ers in the first half. And to James Harden's credit, the first couple weeks of the season, like he was good, not great, right? Like just kind of a one of the many things going on with the Clippers to start the season, between the Kawhi Leonard injury and Chris Paul not playing very well and Bradley Beal getting hurt. And like James Harden was good, but not great to start the season. James Harden has been absurdly good over the last week. He's averaging 33 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists in his last 5 games. So James Harden's been on an absolute heater, and he did a bunch of damage to the Sixers in the first half of this game. And then they started the second half with Quentin Grimes on him, and Quentin Grimes just put the fire out. I thought he did a really nice job of consistently funneling him towards his right hand, so getting situated on that left-hand side, but also keeping his hands out of the cookie jar. Like he was picking up some fouls on guys who were just getting up underneath him or getting it at their hands. VJ Edgecombe had one where he's playing with his hand out, and all that James Harden does when he sees that is he just goes into his gather into your arm. I mean, him and Embiid have been doing that for years, right? And so Quentin Grimes just funneling him towards his right hand and keeping his hands out of the cookie jar, which basically forced Harden to just make contested shots, and that ended up cooling him off. So really nice job defensively. And then Quentin Grimes killed the Sixers in the fourth quarter with his rim pressure off of drives and off of cuts in transition and in the half court. He ended up hitting basically the biggest shot of the game, a pull-up 3 over John Collins along the right wing. Just an awesome game from Grimes, who very much looked like a guy who wants a big contract next year. And once again, for the Sixers, the key is defense for them to have any sort of sustained success. Tyrese Maxey poured in another 38 points. He's leading the league in minutes played, up over 40 minutes per game. And he's leading the league in field goal attempts this year. Kind of a crazy stat. He's taking 24 shots per game. Table that for a second, because I want to get back to that when we're done talking about Paul George. We got to see Paul George back on an NBA court last night, though, and I thought he had a better game than what you would think looking at the box score. Like, it'd be really easy just to look at the box score and go, oh, he's 2 for 9. But I actually thought he did some decent shot creation off the bounce. He ended up drawing a foul on a 3-point shot on one of those, and then he had some really nice driving kick sequences that led to easy shots. I actually thought there was some decent shot creation in there. And then he showed a little bit of the scoring ability, like he hit a pull-up 3 to start the game. He had a play where he got a driving layup over Zubac, where I actually thought it was like kind of an encouraging sign for his body. Like, he really dislodged Zubac with like a hard step right into his chest and led with his shoulder and really knocked him off so that he could go over the top of the little floater. And I was like, you don't do that against Zubac unless you trust your lower body. So I thought that was a good sign of just where his physical and mental confidence is right now. And again, I know he's 2 for 9, but I thought he did some better shot creation than what you'd think looking at the box score. He's not moving super well, but he did have a couple of ISOs where he got to his spot and was able to make some stuff happen. A couple others where he looked like he struggled to get separation, and that's to be expected. This is his first basketball game in forever. So it's going to take a little while for him to get his lungs and to get his full mobility, at least whatever that full mobility looks like at this phase of his career after all the injuries he's dealt with. But I left that game thinking the Sixers are going to need him. Like, in addition to forward depth, which is obviously going to be tested with Kelly Oubre out for a little while, the team also just needs more firepower. Like, the team has a 120 offensive rating with Tyrese Maxey on the floor, according to Cleaning the Glass, but just 111.5 when he's off the floor. And we talked earlier about the minutes load and usage. Like, Tyrese Maxey's playing over 40 minutes a game. Tyrese Maxey is leading the league in field goal attempts, 24 shot attempts per game. Like, you got to find a way to make things just a little easier for him. And one of the things that I like about Paul George's game in particular is I think it fits their current style of play better than Embiid does. Embiid, he can struggle to get up and down the floor with the speed they want to play with. He can be a little bit of a ball stopper. He can struggle sometimes with playmaking. I think Paul George actually functions a little bit more naturally as a second side creator off of Tyrese Maxey. And again, he made some kick out reads yesterday that were the kinds of things that were missing from the Sixers early in the season to try to grease the wheels in the half court for them. I just hope he can stay healthy and regain a little bit more of his mobility, because he does add a dynamic to the Sixers that I think helps them. A couple other quick shout outs from last night before we get out of here. The Raptors won a fun game against the Hornets, and Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram basically won the game with a couple of massive two-way sequences. Scotty Barnes backed down Miles Bridges and basically just buried him under the basket and dunked it. Kind of like a shocking play. You don't see that very often, just a back down dunk in the post. And then Brandon Ingram, a little ISO out of the right corner. He ended up drawing a bunch of attention, and he made a very nice feed to RJ Barrett cutting off of the left wing. Another example of just the combination of high-level playmaking talent that the Raptors have, which has made them a better half-court offense than you would think to start the year. And then both of those guys, there were a couple of easy layups and dunks that the Hornets generated out of action late in the game, where Brandon Ingram ended up getting Ryan Kalkbrenner with a massive dunk, or he was about to go dunk it. He got a massive block off the glass, and then Scotty Barnes ended up doing the same thing to save a layup on the very next possession. Like, a couple of huge defensive plays from those guys. And Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram last night, 43 points, 12 rebounds and 9 assists, 3 steals and 5 blocks between the two of them. And the Raptors have now won 4 in a row, currently sitting 3rd in the Eastern Conference. We did a deep dive in the Raptors on Friday. For those of you guys who missed it, we discussed a combination of their defensive transition attack, but also their really high-level half-court playmaking that leads to these really high-level driving kick concepts and spacing concepts that make them tough to guard. Playing really fun basketball right now, the Toronto Raptors. And then lastly for today, the Miami Heat. I caught just the fourth quarter of their win last night versus the Brunson and Anunoby-less Knicks. And it was kind of another classic Miami Heat game from this year. They had 7 dudes in double figures. Everybody was involved in the offense late in the game. Davion Mitchell hit 2 of the most ridiculous lefty scoop shots that you'll see a small guard make. And so I was digging into the numbers. I was like, man, it feels like Davion's been hitting these tough layups like all season. He's 65% on layups this year. And again, that's an insane number for such a small guard. The vast majority of guards below 6'3", you'll see in that like 53 to 57% range, 57 being the high end for these like small guards. Like for him to be making 65% of his layups shows really impressive touch around the rim. And then they won the game with their perimeter defense. Like the Knicks were killing them with dribble penetration in the early fourth quarter. Deuce McBride had this like absurd dunk in transition, Russell Westbrook-esque, where he just took off like a freight train and then just exploded off of one leg and dunked it with his right hand. Jordan Clarkson was killing him in the paint. Karl Anthony Towns beats Jaime Jaquez off the dribble and gets a little bank shot. Like they were doing a bunch of damage off the dribble. But in the final minutes, the Heat started to keep the ball in front, which started leading to some tougher contested jump shots that didn't go in. And then Kel'el Ware and Norman Powell ended up having a couple of big buckets each late in the game that iced the game. I'm still not super high on the Heat. They're a little gimmicky to me. They're reliant on catching teams sleeping in transition by not stopping the ball with those early drives that they constantly hit teams with. If you can keep the Heat in front, they're not going to beat great defense consistently in the half court. And that's shown in their record splits. Like they're 5-0 this year against teams that are below 500, but they're just 3-6 against teams that are 500 or better. And 2 of those 3 wins were against the Cavs in a game they lost Darius Garland, and the Knicks without Jalen Brunson and OG Anunoby. Although to their credit, they did beat that healthy Knicks team early in the season. To be clear, I don't mean that as a negative thing about the Heat. Like this is not a very good roster. Like if you're stacking up the Miami Heat's talent on paper compared to the other teams in the NBA, they're firmly in like the 16 to 20 range. They're not a very talented roster compared to some of the other teams around the NBA. I mean, they were without Bam Adebayo and Tyler Herro last night, right? I mean, but even when they're fully healthy, I don't see them to be like a very imposing set of talent, right? But once again, they're sitting at 8-6. They're fully in the mix in the Eastern Conference, and it's because Eric Spoelstra just keeps finding ways to maximize talent in the modern NBA. Like this year, he saw the clear strength on his roster. Like, oh man, like Jaime Jaquez can beat dudes off the dribble. Like, Davion Mitchell can initiate a dribble drive attack. We've got some good read and react talent relative to some of the other teams in the league. And so he kind of built this drive and kick system that maximizes that specific set of talent. You've got just that little bit of top end from Norman Powell, who's been fantastic this year as a guy who can score coming off of action by hitting shots over the top. The Heat are like one of the very lowest frequency teams when it comes to off the dribble jump shooting, but they got a couple of guys like Norman Powell and then Tyler Herro when he comes back that can do that. And it just provides a little bit of a counter to their drive and kick system. And then they just dominate the margins like every Eric Spoelstra team does. They dominate the transition battle. They dominate turnovers and points off of turnovers. And so they just find ways to manufacture higher level basketball than what you would expect from the talent on the roster. Again, I'm not trying to say they don't have any talent. It's just the league is stacked. Like they're not going out there with, even like Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes level a type of players that you see in terms of top end compared to some of the other rosters in the league. Like the Heat are operating at a talent deficit and they're competing every single night in a stacked NBA because of Eric Spoelstra's ability to just find what his specific team's strength is and leverage that strength on a night-to-night basis to win games. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. As always, I sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting us and supporting the show. Again, we'll be back most likely tonight, as long as LeBron plays, for the playback stream for Jazz versus the Lakers. Then we'll be back tomorrow with more game reaction. I will see you guys then.